Just going to talk about the importance of protein. Okay. Now, what protein do we need? Okay. Now, first of all, protein forms roughly 10 to 12% of the body. Okay. And proteins are made out of a collection of amino acids. Now, there are many of them, but what the body needs is nine of them. Some claim eight amino acids, nine amino acids, but it's actually nine amino acids as of recent. These the body cannot produce. You have to get it from an external source. Now, these amino acids may recombine with enzymes and a lot of other things to create other amino acids for the body. But these are the nine building blocks. Okay. And you need to have them. Now, let's think, why do we really need these? Now, some of the names you can see, you've got histidine and you name it. I would say leucine, and they all sound like Italian and Spanish names and always Greek names and so on and so forth. We can always come back to this. You can always do a query and find out what are these nine essential amino acids. But it is very important for a lot of parts of your body repair, for the brain, for your bones. Okay, now somebody says bones are made of calcium. What are you talking nonsense? Absolutely not. Okay. You should also remember that a lot of your bone is made of one of the proteins. Okay. I won't get into the details of what that precursor is, but it's called collagen. And collagen is something that you can get from, crustacean food like seafood and a lot of these things. So try and get your diet with more collagen. As you get older, we deplete in our collagen. And sometimes it's too difficult to get the collagen, then you'll have to probably buy a supplement and just take it. Okay. So once I typically tell people first start off with a few supplements because then you can find out which food is there, where it's available, and slowly move off from that and get into completely natural. It's not easy because to find that volume of food that you need is not easy. So sometimes I do suggest that you take a few supplements and, uh, you know, instead of spending it on a fancy whiskey or something, you may just want to buy that little stock which you can use for a month. Okay. So there are a lot of these amino acids that play very vital roles in your body. And where are these so what are these sources? Okay. Eggs. Eggs are a wonder food. Okay. And there are few foods that have all the nine amino acids: eggs, dairy products, meats, fish, green leafy vegetables, spinach, uh, broccoli, and all of these are really, really important. So try and find a way to push in a lot of green leafy vegetables into your diet. They also contain other things which I've covered in a previous video on that. And green leafy vegetables are something you should not avoid and somehow just push for it wherever you can. Then you've got tofu, the soya products. They are very, very rich in proteins. And being a vegetarian source of protein, it's also good. And it is taking a lot of headline now that vegetable sources of protein are really good. And of course, green peas, other pulses are some places where you'll get the sources of protein. And I do recommend that you have the right amount of protein. What is the right amount of protein for you to have? 1 gram for every kg of your ideal weight. Now, let's say, for example, you're 5 feet 4 inches, your ideal weight should be around 60 kilos. So you need 60 grams of this absorbable protein, full protein, okay, not half protein, full protein, which has all the nine amino acids. Now, an egg typically contains 6 grams. A glass of milk, about 300 ml, is about 6 grams. So just imagine if you're 60 kilos, you're going to have to eat about 10 eggs. Okay, yeah, it's a lot. So typically what we do is you get a concentrated form of that protein, and typically that's what I do suggest is get that into your regime. You can't do any much about it because an egg used to have 8 grams of protein probably when we were in our teenage years. But now that has changed because they're being fed hormones, they've been fed, and even the naturally fed, uncaged chickens are not getting the right nutrients because the nutrients are also processed. and sometimes even the things that they eat are of not good source. So it has slowly come down. Okay. Now, you might think that, oh, this sounds a little off, and maybe, how's the world survived? The world has survived so long, but now the world is paying attention. Okay. And when you see all these fit, okay, I'm not saying you have to be a billionaire, but people who care about themselves typically are some people who actually achieve a lot. And these people who achieve a lot are a little concerned about how they are, and they find ways to get what they need in their daily kind of food. Okay. And one of them is, of course, dipping into very, very good sources of food, which can be sometimes extremely expensive because they kind of probably import it. They can afford to do that, but don't worry, we have a lot of that in our country. We can we we can discern ourselves. We can say, okay, this is a higher quality, I might have to pay a little more. This is okay, I can get by with this. This is not that great a quality, I'll eat a little more so that I can. So we'll find ways to do it. Okay. Now, what happens with the lack, if you lack the protein? Okay. Now, before I get into that, I'd like to show you a little infographic about what a carbohydrate looks like molecularly, proteins and fats. Okay. Now you can see there's a lot of hydrocarbon activity going around there. This is the HCO is all over. Okay. Now here's something very interesting. The main difference between a protein and a fat and a carbohydrate is the nitrogen compound that is hanging around in the molecule. Right? You can see everything else is COOH. Okay. And you've got nitrogen, which seems to be the only thing that's slightly different. Now, the liver is such a wonderful organ that if you have the right amount of protein at the right time, and the body is not forced to convert it into fat, at that point of time, if the body needs any kind of certain amount of sugar, the liver can convert protein into blood sugar. All it does is it knocks off the nitrogen and it creates that particular kind of blood glucose that you need on demand. So that's what happens is, when you need ready energy, the the liver is able to pull it out, extract it, and give it to you. Okay. And that's why it's protein is extremely important, because it can help manage glucose without you having too much of carbohydrates and not having that sugar float around in your insulin and your blood. It will release it on demand and go back to what it is. So that's why people with a slightly higher protein profile can react, can suddenly get energetic when they need to. In a case of an emergency, or they need to suddenly do something very quickly, that ready energy happens. And it also helps manage the glucose. So during the program that we have, the dynamic vitality model, and when you move into the dynamic vitality challenge, you will learn how to teach your liver to do this efficiently, which might have gone to sleep. And why did the liver go to sleep? It's simply because we have fed it enough of very simple sugars that the liver never really had the job to do it. Okay. And a whole lot of other things that have been happening. Okay. So, one thing about a secret of looking young is having the right amount of protein. And of course, the other things, the vitamins and minerals, do count, but this is extremely important, because if you do not have enough protein, the body is going to take it from your muscle. And when your muscle gets weaker, it starts to lose its form. Okay. Your skeleton will give you the shape and structure, it'll give you the structure, but it's what the muscle gives you, that beautiful shape. Okay. And a lot of this thing about your skin getting too dreary, and wrinkles and things coming almost at any age. It is no age for this to happen. But you can always recover from this when your body starts to learn that it's getting that adequate amount of protein. And when your body gets changes into uh, a position where it's able to handle this and it unlearns what it learned, in the night, what will happen is you'll start getting into a lot of body repair, and which is a really wonderful thing, because each day you get up in the morning, you're renewed. Okay. So, uh, slow healing, of course. I mean, when you get a cut or something like that, if you don't have a requisite amount of protein on demand, your healing gets slower. Now, unfortunately, a lot of things that we do, we look in the mirror and we look externally and we think everything is okay. But remember, a lot of things do happen internally. Okay, sometimes you might just twist your leg, or maybe you get this frequent backaches. Suddenly you get a cramp. Suddenly you get a stiff neck, and these are all little signs of something not really in proper balance. And also, you've pushed your body beyond a limit, and it cannot recover from that point. So then it goes into kind of a lethargy, and you get inflammation. A whole lot of things happen, and that's a whole story. So the moral of this entire story is that do take your protein intake seriously. And typically in a plate, I recommend that half of your plate should be quarter carbohydrates, maybe quarter to half of protein, and the remaining vegetables. Okay, green leafy vegetables, all healthy ones. Okay, and cooked well and etc. etc. So it's a kind of a rearrangement of thinking, and definitely we are pushed to eat a lot more carbohydrates and probably certain vegetables that have more carbohydrate profile than the protein profile. And once you learn this in the system, then it becomes very easy for you to pick and choose and say, okay, I'm only having this. And you can even do that anywhere you go. You walk into a grocery store if you can't find it in a restaurant, and then you can just whip up something really quick. And making spinach is one of the easiest thing. If you have a nice little tiny pot, you throw in a dollop of butter. Yes, butter is extremely good. It's far better than any of the vegetable oils you can get, simply because butter is not processed like how oils are processed. Okay. It's more natural. It comes in a more natural form. Butter is made by churning that milk out, and you get that layer of fat, and etc. etc. And they package it and won't give it to you. So it has a very minimal amount of process. So even making a quick spinach thing is so easy, because you just throw in maybe a pot of garlic, butter, just saute it, and just simmer it for about 2-3 minutes and close the pot with a cover, and just wait for about 10 minutes. The whole thing gets cooked. Delicious. Okay. And so what we've got to learn is we got to learn to make stuff that is really quick, but extremely useful for you, very beneficial nutritiously, and get what you need for your protein profile and also your other stuff. So I'm done for this session. So the last laugh is always follow the dynamic vitality model.